My name is Jerome Washington. I'm 68 years old, and for 33 years, I drove a city bus through the potholed streets of Detroit. These weathered hands gripped a steering wheel through ice storms, summer heat waves, and everything Michigan winters could throw at me. I retired 6 years ago, just 3 months after my wife Lorraine lost her battle with lung cancer. But before I tell you how my own family tried to strip away everything I worked for, please hit that like button, subscribe to Bernard's Stories, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like mine alive. Dad, you can't stay in Detroit all alone. Come live with us in Atlanta. The weather's warmer, and you'll have family around you. My son Marcus said those words with such concern in his voice. He'd flown up from Georgia for Lorraine's funeral and stayed an extra 10 days to help me sort through her belongings. Every dress I folded, every bottle of her perfume I found, felt like losing her all over again. My Lorraine wasn't just my wife, she was my backbone, my counselor, the woman who kept me grounded through 37 years of marriage. She worked as a nurse at Detroit Medical Center, pulling double shifts during the '08 recession so we could keep Marcus in private school. She never complained, never asked for credit. She just did what needed doing, the way strong black women always have. I agreed to move. What else could I do? The house felt massive without her. Every room echoed with memories I wasn't ready to face alone. We'd raised Marcus there, watched him graduate from Cass Technical High School, sent him off to Morehouse College. Lorraine had planted roses in the backyard every spring. I couldn't bear to see them bloom without her. I sold our home in northwest Detroit, the house where Lorraine had hosted Sunday dinners for the whole block, where she'd organized neighborhood watch meetings, where she'd taught half the kids on our street how to read before kindergarten. The sale brought in $135,000. Combined with my pension savings and the life insurance payout from Lorraine's policy, I had about $95,000 tucked away. It wasn't a fortune, but it was my safety net, my security for whatever years I had left. Marcus and his wife Simone had a nice house in Decatur, just outside Atlanta. They converted the basement into a small suite for me, its own bathroom, a tiny kitchenette, enough space for my belongings, and the photographs of Lorraine I couldn't leave behind. I was grateful. I really was. From the very first month, I insisted on contributing. I gave Marcus $1,500 every month from my pension. That's most of what I received from Social Security and my city pension combined. Dad, you don't have to give us that much, he said the first time I handed him the check. Nonsense. I'm living under your roof, eating your food, using your utilities. It's only right. He didn't argue after that. In fact, after the first few months, he stopped mentioning it at all. The checks simply became expected, like the electric bill or the mortgage payment. My routine was simple. I woke up early, made breakfast for the family, and walked my grandson Terrell to school when the weather was nice. Terrell was 9 years old then, a bright-eyed boy who loved basketball and asked endless questions about everything. After school, I helped him with his homework, shot hoops with him in the driveway, and told him stories about driving the bus through Detroit's toughest neighborhoods, about the kids I transported safely for over 3 decades. My daughter-in-law Simone was polite but distant. She worked long hours as a senior marketing director for a major corporation downtown, and when she came home, she was usually too exhausted for conversation. I tried not to take it personally. Successful black women carry heavy loads. I'd watched Lorraine's shoulder that weighed her entire career. Young people have demanding lives, but sometimes, late at night, I'd hear Simone on the phone with her girlfriends, her voice drifting down to my basement suite. She'd laugh about old folks set in their ways, or complain about extra bodies in the house. I never said anything. Lorraine would have handled it with grace, So I tried to do the same. It was a Thursday morning in late October when everything changed. The rain was coming down hard, that heavy southern rain that turns Atlanta streets into rivers. Marcus had taken the day off work, which was unusual. I heard voices in the living room upstairs, his and another man's voice, deeper, more commanding. I was folding laundry in my basement suite when curiosity got the better of me. I climbed the stairs quietly, not wanting to interrupt. As I reached the top, I heard words that made my heart stop cold. Listen, Richard needs $45,000 to keep the investment property from going into foreclosure. If he doesn't get it by the end of the month, he's going to lose everything. That was Simone's father speaking. I'd met him maybe 5 times over the years at family gatherings. Richard Barnes' former real estate broker, always dressed sharp, always talking about his next big deal. He'd bought a commercial property in East Atlanta 2 years ago. Some kind of mixed-use development that never took off. My son's response came next. Casual, dismissive, like he was discussing the weather. Don't worry about it. I'll just use my dad's account. He's got plenty saved up. He won't even notice if I move some money around. I gripped the doorframe so hard my knuckles turned white. My son's account. Move money around. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. He's loaded anyway, Simone's voice cut in. All that pension money just sitting there collecting dust. What's he gonna spend it on? He's 68 years old. Loaded? As if my life savings, everything Lorraine and I had worked for over decades of early mornings and late nights, was just spare change lying around. As if the money Lorraine had saved by clipping coupons, by shopping sales, by taking extra shifts, meant nothing. Plus, we're already housing him, Richard added. Feeding him, paying for his utilities. The man should be grateful. This is the least he can do for family. I must have made a sound because the conversation stopped abruptly. Is someone there? Richard asked. I heard footsteps approaching. I retreated down the stairs as quietly as I could, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it through the walls. In my basement suite, I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at my hands. They were shaking. These hands that had safely delivered thousands of children to school over 33 years, now trembling because of words spoken by my own family, loaded, plenty saved up. He won't even notice. I pulled out my phone and logged into my banking app. My savings account showed $92,416. I'd spent a little over the years on gifts for Terrell, on contributing to household expenses beyond my monthly payment, on small things here and there. But the bulk of it was still there, my security, my dignity, Loren's legacy. I scrolled through my account settings until I found what I was looking for. I removed Marcus as a joint account holder. When Lorraine was sick, I'd added him in case of emergency, in case something happened to me while I was caring for her. I'd forgotten to change it back after the funeral. The realization hit me like a freight train. He'd had full access to my money for 6 years. For 6 years, he could have taken anything he wanted. Had he already? I checked my transaction history going back months, then years. Nothing unusual that I could see, but the intention was there, crystal clear. He was planning to take $45,000 without even asking me. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the floorboards above me sounded like footsteps coming to confront me. But no one came. Life continued as if nothing had happened, as if I hadn't heard my son conspiring to steal from me. The next morning, Marcus knocked on my door. His smile was the same smile he'd always worn, the smile of the little boy Lorraine used to dress up for church every Sunday. The boy she'd tutored in math at the kitchen table. The boy she'd sacrificed everything for. Hey, Dad, I was wondering if you could help me out with something. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger wearing my son's face. My father-in-law's investment property is going through a rough patch, and he needs a short-term loan. I figured with your savings just sitting there, maybe you could help the family out. I studied his face, looking for any trace of shame, any acknowledgement that he was asking for nearly half of everything I had. I found nothing but that easy, expectant smile. How much are we talking about? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. About $45,000, but we'd pay you back, of course. Within a year, maybe two. $45,000. Nearly half of everything Lorraine and I had saved. Nearly half of what she'd worked herself to exhaustion for. I need to think about it, I said. His expression flickered just for a moment. A flash of frustration, quickly hidden behind another smile. Sure, Dad, take your time. But he really needs an answer soon. The bank's breathing down his neck. After he left, I called my old friend from Detroit, Doug Patterson. We'd driven buses together for 22 years before he retired to Florida with his wife Denise. Jerome, what they're doing isn't right, Doug said after I explained the situation. That money is yours. You and Lorraine worked your whole lives for it. But he's my son. Maybe I'm overreacting. Overreacting? They were planning to take $45,000 without your permission. That's not a misunderstanding, Jerome. That's theft. Doug's wife Denise got on the phone. She was a retired social worker who'd spent 30 years helping seniors in Detroit navigate abuse situations. Jerome, listen to me carefully. What you're describing is textbook financial elder abuse. It happens more often than people think, and it's almost always family members doing it. You need to protect yourself, and you need to do it now. Her words stayed with me long after I hung up. Financial elder abuse. I'd heard the term before, seen it in ARP newsletters, but never imagined it would apply to me, to my family. That weekend, I made a decision. I took Marta downtown to a branch of my bank and opened a new account at a completely different institution. Credit Union Denise had recommended. I transferred all but $5,000 from my old account. If Marcus checked the balance, he'd see there was barely anything left. I also started looking at apartments. Nothing fancy, just small one-bedroom places in the suburbs. The prices were shocking. Atlanta had become so expensive since I'd last paid attention. But there were a few options in East Point, maybe College Park, places where my pension could stretch far enough. Doubt the explosion came sooner than I expected. Dad, what happened to your savings account? Marcus burst into my basement suite without knocking. His face was red, his eyes wild with panic. What do you mean? I asked calmly, though my heart was racing. I checked the balance. There's barely anything in there. Where did all your money go? I removed you from the account, I said, meeting his eyes. And I moved my money somewhere safe. Safe? Safe from what? From being taken without my permission. The color drained from his face. He knew I'd heard them. He knew, and he couldn't deny it. Dad, that was just talk. I was never going to actually take your money without asking. But you were going to ask. And you expected me to say yes. Of course I expected you to say yes. We're family. Family helps each other. I have been helping. I've given you $1,500 every month for 6 years. That's $108,000. I've watched your son every day after school. I've cooked, cleaned, fixed things around this house. Isn't that help? Simone appeared behind Marcus, her arms crossed, her face hard. Mr. Washington, she said in that cold, professional voice she used in boardrooms. With all due respect, your contributions don't come close to covering what it costs to house you. Do you have any idea how much the basement renovation cost? How much extra we spend on groceries, utilities, everything? I contribute $1,500 a month, I replied, keeping my voice steady. That's $18,000 a year $108,000 over 6 years. How much did the renovation cost? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I already knew the renovation had cost around $35,000. I'd been paying for it 3 times over. Dad, this is ridiculous, Marcus cut in. You're acting paranoid. We're your family. We have your best interests at heart. My best interests? I heard you say I was loaded. I heard Simone say I wouldn't notice if you moved money around. Is that having my best interests at heart? You were eavesdropping? Simone's voice rose. You were spying on private conversations in our own home? This is my home too, isn't it? Or am I just a tenant who overpays for basement space? The silence that followed was deafening. Simone's father arrived the next day. He drove a gleaming black Mercedes, wore a Rolex that caught the afternoon sun, and carried himself like a man who'd spent his whole life convincing people to sign contracts they'd regret later. Watching him park in the driveway, I felt a chill run down my spine despite the Georgia heat. Mr. Washington, he said, extending his hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Let me explain my situation. We sat in the living room, Marcus and Simone flanking him like bodyguards, me alone on the opposite couch. It reminded me of every predatory lending meeting Lorraine and I had ever walked out of, back when we were trying to buy our first house in Detroit. My investment property has been in the family's portfolio for 2 years, Richard began, his voice smooth as butter. It's a solid asset, prime location in East Atlanta. But this economy, you know how it is. I just need bridge financing until the market recovers. 60 days, maybe 90. Then I'll pay you back with interest. I understand business can be difficult, I said carefully, but I fail to see how that concerns my savings. His smile tightened just a fraction. Mr. Washington, we're all family here. My daughter married your son. That makes us connected. When family needs help, family steps up. That's how our community has always survived, by taking care of each other. The way he said, our community, made my skin crawl. He was weaponizing blackness, using our shared heritage as leverage to guilt me into compliance. I'd seen men like him before, men who wrapped their selfishness in the flag of racial solidarity. I've stepped up for 6 years, I said. I've contributed more than my share to this household. Your share? He leaned forward, his voice hardening. You live here rent-free. You have meals cooked for you. You have your grandson's company. And all we're asking is for a temporary loan to help during a crisis. Seems like a small ask for a man with nearly $100,000 sitting in the bank doing nothing. Rent-free? The words came out sharper than I intended. I pay $1,500 a month. That's $18,000 a year. He waved his hand dismissively. That barely covers utilities in a house this size. Do you know what basement apartments rent for in Decatur? $2,000 minimum, probably $2,500 with utilities included. You're getting a bargain, and you're living with family instead of strangers. Then perhaps I should find one of those apartments, I said quietly. At least then I'd know exactly what I'm paying for, and nobody would be planning to raid my bank account behind my back. The room went silent. Marcus looked at me with something between shock and panic. Dad, what are you talking about? You're not moving out. Why not? I'm clearly a burden. My contributions aren't enough. My presence is tolerated only because you expected access to my savings. That's not true, Simone said, but her voice lacked conviction. She'd always been a poor liar, one of the few things I actually respected about her. Richard stood up, straightening his expensive jacket, looking down at me like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Mr. Washington, I've tried to be reasonable, but if you refuse to help your family, there are other options we can explore, such as... He paused at the door, his expression cold and calculating. You're 68 years old, living in a basement, making erratic financial decisions, transferring large sums of money suddenly, becoming secretive, paranoid. A doctor might consider these early signs of cognitive decline. Sometimes families need to step in when elderly relatives are no longer capable of making sound decisions. It's for their own protection. The threat hung in the air like smoke from a gun barrel. You're threatening to have me declared incompetent, I said slowly, because I won't give you $45,000. I'm saying that sometimes the people who love us need to make difficult decisions for our own good. Think about it, Mr. Washington. Think very carefully. After he left, Marcus and Simone stayed in the living room. I could hear them arguing in hushed tones, but I didn't strain to listen. I'd heard enough. That night, I called Doug again. Denise answered. "Jerome, you need a lawyer," she said without preamble after I explained what had happened. "Not tomorrow, not next week. Tomorrow morning. This man just threatened you with guardianship proceedings." "That's serious. Can they actually do that?" My voice sounded small, even to my own ears. "It's extremely difficult without solid evidence of cognitive impairment," Denise explained. "But the process itself can be traumatic and expensive. You need to protect yourself proactively. Get a cognitive assessment, update your legal documents, and document everything that's happened." The next morning, I took Marta to a legal clinic in downtown Atlanta that specialized in elder law. The lawyer who met with me was a young black woman named Patricia Moore, maybe 35, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense manner that reminded me of Lorraine when she was advocating for her patients. "Mr. Washington, what you're describing is textbook financial elder abuse and coercion," she said after I finished my story, her pen moving rapidly across a legal pad. "The threats about declaring you incompetent are particularly serious. That's intimidation, and it's illegal. Can they actually go through with it? It's extremely difficult without solid medical evidence of cognitive impairment. You're clearly lucid. You manage your own finances. You live independently. You have no history of confusion or poor judgment. No court would take their petition seriously without a doctor backing them up. But if they try anyway, we fight back hard." She outlined a plan. Get a comprehensive cognitive assessment from an independent geriatrician. Update my will and power of attorney to exclude anyone with conflicts of interest. Document everything, every conversation, every threat, every interaction. Consider filing for a restraining order if Richard continued his intimidation. "One more thing," Patricia said, her dark eyes meeting mine. "I want you to know that what you're doing standing up for yourself, protecting your assets, that's not selfish. Your wife worked hard for that money too, didn't she?" "Lorraine worked herself to the bone," I said, my throat tight. "Double shifts, extra weekends. She saved every penny she could." "Then protecting that money is honoring her memory. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for that. Not even your son." I followed Patricia's advice to the letter. The cognitive assessment took 3 hours at Emory University Hospital. The geriatrician, Dr. Sarah Chun, was thorough and kind. She tested my memory, my reasoning, my ability to manage complex tasks. "Mr. Washington, your cognitive function is excellent for your age," she said at the end, signing the official report. "Better than many people 20 years younger. I'll provide you with copies of this assessment. If anyone questions your competency, you have medical proof that you're fully capable of managing your own affairs." Patricia helped me update my legal documents that same week. I named Doug and Denise as my emergency contacts and power of attorney instead of Marcus. I created a small trust fund for Terrell's college education. $15,000 that his parents couldn't touch until he turned 18. The rest of my money stayed firmly under my control. 2 weeks later, I found an apartment. It was a small one-bedroom in East Point, on the second floor of a quiet building near the MARTA station. The rent was $1,100, a month less than what I'd been giving Marcus. The landlord was an older black woman named Mrs. Evelyn Davis, maybe 75, with silver hair and a warm smile that reminded me of the church mothers back in Detroit. "You seem like good people, Mr. Washington," she said after showing me the apartment. "Quiet, respectful. That's what I like in my building. When can you move in?" "Soon," I said. "Very soon." I started packing my belongings in secret, a little bit each day. I didn't have some clothes, books, photographs of Lorraine, my tools. Everything fit into a dozen boxes stacked neatly in my basement closet, but my grandson complicated everything. "Grandpa, why is everyone so angry all the time?" Terrell asked one afternoon while we were shooting hoops in the driveway. The October sun was warm on our faces, leaves falling around us in shades of gold and red. "Grown-up problems, buddy. Nothing for you to worry about." "Is it about money?" "Mom and Dad argue about money a lot now." "And Grandpa Richard," he hesitated, bouncing the basketball nervously. "What about him?" "He says mean things about you when you're not around. He says old people who don't help family are selfish. He says he knows a doctor who can make you help." "What does that mean?" My blood ran cold. They were discussing this in front of a child discussing their plans to have me declared incompetent where my grandson could overhear. I knelt down to his level, putting my hands on his shoulders. "Listen to me, Terrell. Grown-ups sometimes disagree about things, and sometimes grown-ups don't treat each other right. But no matter what happens, I will always be your grandpa, and I will always love you. You understand?" "Yeah." He nodded, his eyes searching my face. "Are you going away?" "I'm going to get my own place. But you can visit me whenever you want. We'll still shoot hoops, still do homework together. That won't change, promise?" "Promise." 3 days later, I moved out. I waited until everyone had left for work and school, then called a moving company. It didn't take long. Everything I owned fit in their smallest truck. I left a letter on the kitchen table explaining that I'd found my own apartment and would be in touch about visitation with Terrell. I also left 1 month's rent, $1,500 in an envelope. My final payment for a debt I'd already overpaid. The calls started within hours. "Dad, where are you?" "Your suite is empty." "What's going on?" I let it ring through to voicemail. "Mr. Washington, this is incredibly irresponsible. You can't just leave without discussing this with us first. Think about what you're doing to your grandson. Delete. Grandpa, where did you go? Mom is crying and Dad is mad. Are you okay?" That one I answered. "I'm fine, buddy. I just got my own apartment. You can visit me this weekend if your parents say it's okay. I'll text you the address." The barrage continued for days. Marcus oscillated between anger and pleading. Simone threatened legal action without specifying what kind. Richard left a single voicemail in that cold, measured tone of his. "Mr. Washington, this isn't over. You can't run away from your responsibilities to your family. We will resolve this properly, one way or another." A week after I moved, they found my new address. I don't know how. Maybe they followed me on MARTA. Maybe they hired someone. Maybe they just asked around the neighborhood. But one evening, there was a knock at my door. I checked the peephole. Marcus stood in the hallway, alone. He looked exhausted, older than his 42 years, shoulders slumped like he was carrying a weight too heavy to bear. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. "We're talking now." "Dad, please. This has gotten out of hand." "Out of hand?" "Your father-in-law threatened to have me declared incompetent because I wouldn't give him $45,000. You and Simone stood there and said nothing. You let him threaten me in your own home. I didn't think he was serious, but you didn't stop him either. You didn't defend me. Your mother would have been ashamed. His face crumpled at the mention of Lorraine. I know, Dad. I know I messed up. I should have said something. I should have stood up for you. But you have to understand Richard has been helping us for years. When money was tight, when the mortgage was underwater, he always stepped in. And now he expects you to repay the favor with my money. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you are ready to let him steamroll me just to keep him happy. Just to keep the peace in your marriage. He didn't have an answer. The silence stretched between us, like the years that had somehow created this distance. Your mother worked herself sick to give you opportunities, I said quietly. She took double shifts so you could go to Morehouse. She went without so you could have. And you were ready to throw away what she saved, what we both saved, without even asking me first, without even considering what it meant. Dad, I think you should go. I closed the door. Through the wood, I heard him standing there for a long moment before his footsteps finally retreated down the hall. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I missed Terrell, terribly missed his questions, his laughter, the way he'd run to hug me when he got home from school. But every time I felt weak, every time I thought about calling Marcus to apologize, I remembered those words. He's loaded. He won't even notice. I remembered Lorraine working double shifts while fighting pneumonia because we needed the money for Marcus's college applications. I remembered her hands, cracked and dry from years of washing them between patients, carefully counting out bills to add to our savings account. Every dollar in that account had a story, a sacrifice behind it. I couldn't dishonor her memory by letting someone take it without a fight. Patricia kept me updated on the legal front. Apparently, Richard had been making inquiries about guardianship procedures, calling around to find doctors who might be sympathetic to his claims. But without any evidence of actual impairment, he had nothing to work with. Dr. Chun's assessment was ironclad. They're hoping you'll give up, Patricia said during one of our phone calls, that the isolation will break you down. That's how financial abusers operate. They wear you down emotionally until you're too tired to fight. Don't let them. I threw myself into making my new apartment a home. I bought a small couch from the thrift store, hung photographs of Lorraine on the walls, set up a workspace in the corner where I could repair small electronics clocks, radios, things people threw away that just needed patient hands to fix them. Keeping my hands busy kept my mind from wandering to dark places. Mrs. Davis became an unexpected friend. She'd lost her husband 15 years ago and had raised 4 children on her own, working as a school teacher in Atlanta public schools. She understood loneliness, understood the weight of carrying on after loss. Your family, she said one evening as we sat on her porch drinking sweet tea, they don't see you clearly. They see what they want from you, not who you are. My own daughter did that to me, once tried to get me to sell this building, move in with her, let her manage my money. I had to set her straight real quick. What did you do? Told her the truth, that I raised her to be strong and independent, and I expected the same respect in return, that my money was mine, my choices were mine, and if she couldn't accept that, she could step back until she learned better. She sipped her tea, the ice clinking gently. Took her about 6 months, but she came around. Some people need to feel the distance before they appreciate the closeness. I hope Marcus comes around, but I'm not sure he will. Then that's his loss, baby, not yours. You keep your dignity. That's something nobody can take from you unless you give it away. Her words settled into my bones like warmth from the Georgia sun. The confrontation I'd been dreading came in early December. Marcus called to invite me to Christmas dinner. A peace offering, he said. We want to put this behind us, Dad. Start fresh. For Terrell's sake. I agreed to come, though every instinct told me it was a mistake. But I missed my grandson, and Christmas had always been Loran's favorite holiday. She'd spend weeks baking sweet potato pies and pecan tarts, decorating the house, making sure everyone felt loved and welcomed. I couldn't let her traditions die completely. Christmas Day was unseasonably warm, 65 degrees and sunny, so different from the Detroit winters Lorraine and I had known. I took Marta to Decatur, carrying a bag of presents for Terrell books, a basketball, a model airplane kit we could build together. When I walked through the door, the first thing I saw was Richard sitting in the living room, drink in hand, watching me with those calculating eyes. It's a family gathering, Marcus said when he saw my expression. Of course he'd be here. I almost turned around and left right then. But Terrell came running down the stairs, launching himself into my arms. Grandpa, you came. I missed you so much. I stayed for him. Dinner was tense. Simone had cooked a spread that would have made Lorraine proud, honey glazed ham, collard greens, macaroni and cheese, cornbread, but the food tasted like ash in my mouth. Conversation was stilted, punctuated by long silences and awkward glances. I could feel Richard watching me, waiting for something. It came after dessert. Richard set down his wine glass with a deliberate clink. Mr. Washington, this family situation has gone on long enough. I think it's time we discuss things like reasonable adults. I agree. So let me be clear. I'm not lending you $45,000. I'm not lending you any amount. My money is my own, and it will stay that way. His jaw tightened, a vein pulsing at his temple. You know, Mr. Washington, stubbornness in elderly people is often an early sign of cognitive decline. Paranoid thinking, isolating yourself from family, making rash financial decisions. I have a colleague, a psychiatrist, who specializes in these cases. I have a letter from a geriatrician at Emory University Hospital, I replied calmly, stating that I'm in excellent cognitive health for my age. Dated last month. I also have documentation of every threat you've made, every attempt to coerce me into giving up my savings. My lawyer has copies of everything. The table went silent. Marcus's fork clattered onto his plate. What? Simone asked, her voice tight. I also have a lawyer, I continued, meeting Richard's eyes steadily. Patricia Moore. She specializes in elder abuse cases. If you pursue this incompetency angle, if you continue threatening me, she filed criminal charges. Financial elder abuse carries serious penalties in Georgia fines, jail time, permanent records. Is your failed investment property worth that risk? Richard's face flushed red. This is absurd. I was trying to help. The property needs capital, and you have money sitting around doing nothing. It's not doing nothing. It's providing me with security, independence, and dignity. 3 things you've tried to strip away from me. Dad, Marcus started, but I held up my hand. I'm leaving now, I said, standing up. Terrell, you're welcome to visit me any time. Your parents have my address. But I won't come back to this house again. Terrell was watching from the doorway, his eyes wide. I hated that he had to see this, but I was done hiding. Done pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. As I walked toward the door, Simone's voice stopped me. Mr. Washington, wait. I turned. She was standing now, her hands clasped in front of her, a posture I'd never seen from her before. Almost humble. You're right, she said quietly. About all of it. I let my father pressure you. I stood by while he threatened you. I treated your contributions like they were nothing when they were everything. Her voice cracked slightly. My mother raised me better than that. She taught me to respect my elders, to honor the people who paved the way. And I forgot that. I'm sorry." The apology hung in the air. Marcus was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. "I can't speak for my father," Simone continued, glancing at Richard with something that looked like disappointment. "He's going to do what he's going to do. But I can speak for myself and for my household. You were right. You've more than paid your share. And if you ever want to come back, you're welcome. No strings, no expectations. Just family." I looked at her for a long moment. This was the first time she'd ever really seen me, not as a resource to be managed, but as a person deserving respect. "I appreciate that, Simone. I really do. But I have my own place now, and I'm happy there. Maybe that's how it needs to be." I walked out into the December warmth. Marcus followed me to the driveway. "Dad, please wait." I turned around. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. "I'm sorry," he said, and tears were streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry. Mom would be ashamed of me." "You're right about that. She worked so hard for us, for that money, and I was ready to throw it away. I was ready to let Richard steamroll you just to avoid conflict in my marriage. Then why didn't you stop him?" "Because I was scared. Scared of what Simone would think if I went against her father. Scared of rocking the boat. Scared of being a man." He wiped his eyes roughly. "But being a man means protecting your family. All of your family. And I failed you. I failed Mom's memory. I thought about Lorraine, about what she would say if she were here. She'd always believed in second chances. She'd forgiven me plenty of times over 37 years of marriage for mistakes, for moments of weakness, for times when I'd fallen short of the man she needed me to be. I love you, son. I always will. But trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. Maybe years. And I need you to understand that it's okay if we're not where we used to be. People grow, relationships change. That doesn't mean love disappears. It just means it looks different now. Can I at least bring Terrell to visit?" "Of course. He's innocent in all of this. Next Saturday, if you want. We can go to the museum, get lunch, spend the day together." He nodded, unable to speak through his tears. I walked to the MARTA station as the sun set over Atlanta, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The air smelled like pine and wood smoke from someone's fireplace. Christmas lights twinkled in windows along the street. The months that followed were different, but in a good way. Terrell visited every other weekend. We explored Atlanta together, the aquarium, the Center for Civil and Human Rights, Stone Mountain. We built model planes in my tiny apartment, shot hoops at the park near Mrs. Davis's building, talked about school and basketball, and what he wanted to be when he grew up. "I think I want to be a teacher," he told me one Saturday afternoon. "Like Mrs. Davis used to be. She says teachers change lives." "Your grandmother was a nurse," I said. "She changed lives every single day, helped people when they were scared and hurting, made them feel safe." I pulled out a photograph of Lorraine in her scrubs, smiling at the camera. "She would have been proud to know you wanted to help people too. I wish I remembered her better. That's why I tell you stories, buddy. So you know where you come from. So you know the strength you've got in your blood." Marcus and I spoke occasionally brief conversations, careful and polite. He told me Richard's investment property had finally been foreclosed on, that Richard had moved to Charlotte to start over. I felt no satisfaction in the news, no vindication. Just relief that he was gone from our lives. Simone surprised me by calling once a month. We'd talk for maybe 15 minutes awkward at first, then gradually easier. She told me about her work, about Terrell's progress in school. She never asked about my money again. "I've been thinking about my mother lately," she said during one call. "She passed when I was 25. Breast cancer. She was so strong, you know. Worked 2 jobs to put me through college. never complained, never asked for help. And I think somewhere along the way, I forgot to honor that strength. I started taking for granted the sacrifices people make. It's never too late to remember, I said. Never too late to do better. In March, on what would have been Loren's 73rd birthday, I flew back to Detroit. Doug picked me up from the airport, and we drove to the cemetery together. Spring was just beginning to touch Michigan crocuses, pushing up through the last patches of snow. Robins singing in the bare trees. I knelt by Loren's headstone, placed fresh roses in the holder yellow. Her favorite. I did it, baby, I said quietly, running my fingers over her name, carved in granite. I stood up for myself, for us, for everything you worked for. I hope you're proud. She is, Doug said, standing a respectful distance behind me. Denise and I both know she is. You honored her memory the best way possible, by honoring yourself. That evening, back in Doug's Florida condo, my phone rang. It was Terrell. Grandpa, guess what? I got chosen for the advanced science program at school. We get to do experiments and build robots and everything. That's incredible, buddy. Your grandmother would be over the moon. She always said you were going to do amazing things. Can you come to the showcase next month? Please? I want you to see my project. I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it for the world. When I hung up, I sat by the window and watched the sun set over the Gulf of Mexico. At 68 years old, I'd learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, honesty, and trust. Marcus had failed me, but he was trying to make amends. That didn't erase what happened, didn't magically rebuild what was broken, but it was a start. My savings, the money Richard had wanted so badly, remained safely in my account. I'd set up that trust fund for Terrell's college education. $15,000 that would grow with interest until he turned 18. The rest would see me through whatever years I had left, would allow me to live with dignity and independence, the way Lorraine would have wanted. Mrs. Davis knocked on my door the evening I got back from Detroit, bringing a pot of gumbo that smelled like heaven. You look lighter. Mr. Jerome, she said, setting the pot on my tiny stove. Like you set down something heavy. I guess I did. Went to visit my wife's grave, made my peace with some things. That's good. That's real good. She patted my hand with her soft, weathered one. You know what my mama used to say? Evelyn, she'd say, a woman who stands up for herself teaches everyone around her how to stand too. Same goes for men. You stood up, and now your grandson sees what that looks like. That's a legacy worth more than money. Yesterday, Terrell asked me a question while we were working on his science project, a model of the solar system with LED lights for each planet. Grandpa, are you still mad at Dad and Mom? I thought carefully about my answer, the way Lorraine always taught me to do when talking to children. Tell the truth, but tell it gentle. Mad is too simple a word, buddy. I'm disappointed in choices they made. I'm sad about trust that got broken. But I still love them, and I'm hopeful they're learning from their mistakes. Does that make sense? I think so. It's like when I broke your favorite coffee mug and lied about it. You forgave me, but you said I had to earn back your trust. Exactly like that. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let the hurt control you anymore. But trust, that takes time to rebuild. And you're rebuilding it with Dad? We're trying. Some days are easier than others. But we're both trying, and that's what matters. He nodded, carefully gluing Jupiter into position on his model. I'm glad you have your own place, Grandpa. It's nice. Mrs. Davis is cool. And you seem happier. Out of the mouths of babes, as Lorraine used to say. As I write this, sitting in my small apartment with the spring breeze coming through the window, I think about everything that's happened. The betrayal, the threats, the painful discovery that my own son saw me as nothing more than a source of money. But I also think about the good things: Patricia's fierce advocacy, Mrs. Davis's friendship, Terrell's unconditional love, Simone's eventual apology. I think about the women who shaped this story. Lorraine, who worked herself to exhaustion to build our savings, who taught me by example what strength and sacrifice look like. Denise, who recognized abuse when she heard it and pushed me to protect myself. Patricia, who fought for my rights with the same passion Lorraine had when advocating for her patients. Dr. Chun, who gave me the medical documentation I needed to defend myself. Mrs. Davis, who reminded me that dignity comes from within. Even Simone, who finally found the courage to stand up to her father and apologize for her part in the damage. The women in my life, past and present, showed me what real strength looks like. Not the kind that bulldozes over others, but the kind that lifts people up, that stands firm in the face of pressure, that chooses truth over comfort. Marcus called this morning. We talked for 20 minutes, our longest conversation since I moved out. Dad, I've been thinking about something Mom used to say. Remember how she'd always tell me, your character is defined by what you do when nobody's watching? I remember. I failed that test. When Richard was pressuring you, when Simone was going along with it, I could have spoken up. I could have stood between you and them. But I didn't, because I thought nobody was watching. I thought it didn't matter. His voice was thick with emotion. But you were watching. Terrell was watching. And Mom, wherever she is, she was watching too. What matters now is what you do going forward, son. Character isn't just about one moment. It's about the pattern of choices over time. I want to do better. I want to be the man you and Mom raised me to be. Then be that man. Not for me, not for Simone, not for Terrell. For yourself. After we hung up, I looked at Loren's photograph on my wall, her in her nursing scrubs, smiling that smile that could light up a whole room. He's trying, baby, I said to her image. It's slow, but he's trying. I think you'd want me to give him that chance. I like to think she smiled a little wider. If my story moved you, if it made you think about the value of dignity at any age, about the strength it takes to stand up to family, about honoring the legacies of the strong women who came before us, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment. Let me know where you're watching from. Share your own stories of standing up for yourself. It's never too late to reclaim your dignity. It's never too late to honor the sacrifices of the people who loved you. It's never too late to say enough is enough and start over. I did it at 68, with Laurent's memory as my guide and the example of strong women lighting my path. You can do it too.